Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I'm your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels. Today we are assembling the Deepest Depths Nightmare Edition box for the Neverborn faction. This is, well, it is now the Brood keyword, no longer Nephilim. We are in 4th edition. This is a stand-in for what I believe will be the Nekima Nephilim Queen keyword box. I could be wrong. I don't think we've seen what exactly her boxes are going to be quite yet. But this is the first, more stabby version of Nekima. Anyways, box contains 6 miniatures. You've got Adara here, who is Nekima. You've got the Blood Hunter, which is the Lagan, which are these eels here. You've got 2 Trenchlings, which are these little guys, and those are Terratots. And then 2 Reefdwellers, which are young Nephilim. That is the artwork. Renders on the back. Some lovely fish people. Alright, that's the render. Let's look at the sprue. Our sprue is not looking too complicated for a Nightmare box, so I'm pretty excited for that. We've got Adara here, which is this entire sprue. Cool. The Lagan here are 2 Trenchlings, little guys, and then the 2 Reefdwellers. I think the only thing with a bunch of bits is going to be Adara herself, which is understandable since she is the big centerpiece master model. But let's go ahead and look at her instructions and then go ahead and start on her assembly order. For Adara, we're going to grab the main part of her body, and then we're going to basically add everything below her waist that isn't fish parts, or to actual fish. So I'll do F6, which goes on her front, this little tiny tentacle bit, F10 on her back, this slightly bigger piece, F3 on her back, and then we'll add the fish that's kind of attached to the bottom, F8, the fish head that's attached on that same side, F2, the tail end of that fish, F5, and then the fish that is attached to her hand, F7, and then once we're done with that, we can do the jaw necklace, F9, and finish with her head, F4. So let's grab F1 and F6 first. All right, here's F1. F6 is just going to go right in here and up through this gap. That looks great. Next, a little bit, the tiny tentacle, F10. I'm going to glue right in there. All right. Next is going to be F3. F3 is going to cover up this gap along the butt. Okay, modesty restored. Let's start adding fish parts. First fish part, F8, is going to fit right in that hole. The fish has, this guy right here has that nice little tooth on the back. Fish is added. Our next fish comes in 2 bits. Let's go ahead and add the head first, which is F2? Yes, F2. And that is going to attach right here. Notice this nice little bulge on the model, and that is going to connect to this bulge on the fish head. Okay, F5 is the rest of the fish, as well as an additional tentacle connect here and also through there. Okay, you should put this bit on before you do the fish head. My bad. Would be a lot easier. Wasn't too difficult, but definitely an easier assembly order if you do this bit first. Okay, last fish bit. That'll be F7. Is going to attach to her wrist, as well as on this nice little bulge here. If you look on the inside of the fish, there's more to connect than just that one round tooth. There we go. Looks great. Alright, second to last bit, the fish bone jaw thing, F9. That is going to attach right here and here. There might be more attachments, but those are big, obvious connection points. On our sprue, there's our bit, but those connection points are down here. You can see those little round bits. There's the necklace. And the last bit, our hair and head, F4. Gonna mostly connect it back here. Just gotta avoid the trident. Alright, Adara is done. Let's put her on a big base. Adara is done, and she was actually surprisingly easy. I was expecting something a lot harder from a Nightmare box, but I'm not going to complain. Hardest part for her, I would say, would be the jaw necklace, and maybe the order if you got it wrong. I think if you did things out of order, then you might run into some more trouble. But overall, pretty easy model, very pretty model. So let's just keep going, why don't we? Our totem, the Lagan, is next. Lagan, watched too much anime. Anyways, grab the main, or the biggest piece, C1, and then we'll add the tail bit that is attached to it, followed by the larger eel piece, C5, and then we'll add the sort of basing bits I can see to that. We'll do C2 and then C3, and then we should be done. So let's look at the instructions and then grab C1 and C4. Alright, here's C1. C4 is going to fit right in there. C1 kind of looks like the end of a tail, and so the thickest part of it will be what is jammed up in there. Alright, let's flip it over, and C5 is going to take up this big connection point right here. Okay, looks like I've been holding it wrong. It's actually supposed to be oriented this way. But there's all of our eels. Now the basing things are going to be a little bit tricky to figure out. I know how the skulls are supposed to go, so we'll do those next. The skulls will take up these three little pill-shaped connection points. And hopefully you can see their connection. Here's our bit. And if we zoom in real close, you can see 1, 2, 3 right there. So let's add those on. Next, let me find our bit. All right. There we are. Okay. That looks real good. Now give me a second while I figure out how this sort of ribcage is supposed to fit in there. Okay, I think I got it, but if I'm wrong, it's one of those things where I don't think anyone's going to care too much if it's slightly off angle. Okay, right here you see this indentation. I believe that is supposed to go along the sort of spine of this bit. Right here you see this sort of slightly lowered spot that kind of looks like it might be a connection point. So I believe our snake guy is going to be resting almost exactly like that on the bit. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it now. And there we go. I think that fits relatively well. It's flat. Just make sure it sits flat so it can sit nice on the base. And I'll call it good. Let's base the Lagan. The Lagan is done. Difficult bit model, just a bunch of small pieces and you're not entirely certain where they're supposed to go. The hardest parts was the rib cage that goes on the bottom because it's not exactly obvious where that is supposed to go. But the good thing is that no one's going to know exactly how it's supposed to fit in there. No one's going to call you out on it. No one should be calling you out on poor assembly anyways. And I would call that, if you got it slightly wrong, not poor assembly anyways, because it's very hard to get that exactly right. I'm not sure if I got it right. So what am I saying? Right, hardest parts were the two basing bits there. Be careful of basing this thing too. Right, let's move on to the minions. Our Trenchlings are next. Sadly, the instructions have them labeled differently, but we'll just go ahead and do left to right, so that while this says B, it is labeled as Trenchling A in the instructions. So let's go ahead and look at those instructions and then get our assembly order down. Okay, this is going to be slightly weird. Let's grab the torso and then add the lower half of the body. Then we will add the lower jaw, the upper jaw, the back of the head, then this fin that goes, from the lower back to the top of the head. And might have to add the back of the head before we do the upper jaw, not entirely sure which. But anyways, after all that's done, then we can go ahead and do the right arm. So let's grab B6 and B7 first. If it wasn't obvious, I can't seem to find my tweezers. Okay, here's our torso. Let's add our little fishy boy body. Our butt. Fish butt. Okay. This seam looks pretty good. Alright, now let's grab B3, lower jaw. Let's add it right there. Okay, looks like it's going to be really awkward to try to put the top of the jaw on there, so let's go and do the back of the head instead. B4, going ahead and fitting right there. Right, now top of the jaw, B1, should go squeeze right in there. Okay. Now let's grab B5, this sort of dorsal fin thing. Goes all the way down there. Add that next. And I end up squishing the upper jaw to the back of the head a bit better before I added this on there. But it looks good now. Now let's just add our last bit, the right arm, B2, right on this spot right there. Okay, little guy's done. Put him on a base. Our first trenchling is done. We're going to call this one Beta. Ain't he a cutie? Hardest part for him was getting the top of the jaw jammed in there, and that's kind of my fault for not understanding the order of things, or just guessing on the order of things. But I told you how it's supposed to go in, so now you know. That's it. Let's move on. Our next trenchling should go even faster. Let's not hit the camera, please. Then we will grab the body and then add. I just realized absolutely nothing. Grab the body and the lower jaw, then the upper jaw, and then we'll go ahead and do the left arm and the right arm and call them good. So snip out A4 and then A2. A4, now A2 right there. And we might have to pop that out and add the top of the head. We'll see. A5. I'll let you know if I have to pull the jaw out or not. I managed to squeeze it in there, but I do recommend combining the two bits first. So that is to say, add A5 and A2 together before you put them inside of A4. But again, I managed to do it on my own. That's the side of the other side of the head. Now let's add the left arm A1. Gonna go right in there. Took a little bit of nudging with my knife to get it in there, but yeah, he's kind of going in for a hug. Alright, A3, the last arm, the right arm, goes right in there. Alright, our boy is done. Put him on a base. Our second trenchling is done. We're going to call this one Barb, and also the order of the jaw jamming into the head gave me a little bit of trouble, but also the arms, fitting them in after the head. I don't think going either way would have been the right call, because I think if we put the arms in first, then trying to put the head in there would knock the arms out of place and vice versa. So difficult either way, but at least there's only a few pieces. Let's move on to our other set of minions. Okay, Reefdwellers are our last two models. These ones actually line up with the Reefdwellers in the instructions, so we'll start with one and then do two. Our separator is right here. So let's go ahead and look those instructions and get started with our first Reefdwellers order of assembly. Alright, he seems pretty simple. We'll grab the body and then start our way from the bottom up. We'll add the tail, and then we'll go ahead and do his butt, effectively. And then we can do the left arm, the right arm, add the head, and then finish with the fin crest on the back of his back and head. Alright, so grab D6 and then D5. I'm already regretting suggesting that's just because it's a very small connection, but may not get out of place. It should be easy enough to fix. We're going to add the end of the tail there. But if you think you're going to accidentally knock it out of place, you can do this as your last step. Okay, there is our connection. That's the angle we're going for. He's going to be sort of lunging forward. I believe you're supposedly supposed to attach him to the base right there on the bottom of the tail. I wouldn't do that. I would make sure he's secured another way because, again, that is a small connection point. Be very careful with that. All right, let's add his butt, I guess, which is D7, going right in that hole. All right, there we go. Okay, D1 is going to be our left arm. Going to attach right there on the shoulder. Okay. Now let's do D3, our right arm. Gonna go right in there. Right arm is in. Now we just got D2, the head, going right there. And that's not going to matter a whole ton because we're most worried about the dorsal fin slotting in there, which is D4. So go ahead and put that in and attach it to both the head and the back. Okay, there we go. First Reefdweller is done. Put him on a base. Our first Reefdweller is done. We're going to call this one Cichlid. The hardest part for him was deciding to put the tail fin on first and having to suffer through trying not to knock that thing out of place. If you didn't do that, like a smart person, then the hardest part would probably be getting the head and the dorsal fin to attach to each other. But yeah, that would probably be the hardest part after the tail fin. Best of luck trying to attach them to a base without anything falling off. Alright, let's move on to the last model. Our last Reefdweller, and we're going to learn from the last one and do the tail fin last. So we're going to grab E1 and we'll add the tail, which is a more solid connection, but we won't add the tail fin. After that, we will add the left arm, right arm, and the back fin. Then the dorsal fin on the back, dorsal fin on the back of the head, and then finish with the tail fin. So snap out E1 first, followed by E3. Alright, here's E1, E3, gonna attach right there. There we go. Looks good. Alright, let's actually go ahead and just do the fins on his lower back, E7. Just gonna go ahead and go right here, so sorry for getting my order wrong already. And those are the fins. Now, arms. We're going to do E5, which is our left arm. And now we do E4, which is our right arm. Alright, dorsal fin on the back is going to be E6. It looks like it's going to be flopping towards his left. That looks pretty good. Now E2 is the one on his head, and that appears like that it's going to be flopping to his right. Okay, cool. Last bit, E8, which is going to be that last tail fin attaching right there. Okay. There we be. Put him on a base. Our second Reefdweller is done. We're going to call this guy Oscar. The hardest part for him was getting those fins on the back of his back and head inserted. Those were just a little hard, just because they're small bits, trying to insert into a small groove. The tail fin also wasn't too terribly easy, but wasn't nearly as difficult as the other models. So we'll say those are the hard parts. I'd say this one was actually easier than the other one, just because I didn't have to avoid knocking that tail bit out of place. So let's look at the whole box now. The Deepest Depths box is done, containing Adara, the Lagan, 2 Trenchlings, and 2 Reefdwellers. Overall, relatively moderately difficult box for a Nightmare box. Definitely not the hardest one I've done. Actually, I'd say it's closer to on the easy side compared to a lot of the other Nightmare ones. The only really hard parts being some tiny bits and a few instances where order was important that I didn't follow, or at least I guess incorrectly, and some bit placement where I wasn't entirely sure where the things were going to go. But very pretty models, and nothing that was like too super impossible, so I'm not gonna complain a whole lot about it. Yeah, I think that's it. So, I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Fucking... Right, sorry. Anyways, have a good night.